Greetings. Welcome back to my channel, Ham Radio Test and Review, where my motto is, one test is worth 1,000 expert opinions. Today, we're going to be testing the Radtel RT-900 HT radio. For those of you who are not familiar with Radtel, it is a fairly new company that has been marketing rebranded radios from other companies. In this particular case, I'm not sure which model this is rebranded from. It may be one of their own, I'm not really sure. But in this particular case, it is not one that I recognize. Anyway, there are some other models that they've been rebranding from a company called iRadio, and I'll get into that in just a few minutes. But anyway, give me just a second, I'll be right back, and I'll get started with the review. So here's the radio itself. Now this thing is a tank. It is a brick. I have big hands, and I can barely fit my hand around this radio. It is that big. Look how thick it is with that battery. It is just a tremendously heavy. A good part of that weight is from the 2200 milliamp hour battery. Now, however, this radio does feel very solid, and it does fit the hand rather well. But like I said, look, I can't get my hand all the way. Anyway, give me just a minute and we'll start the review and the testing here in just a minute. Now, according to the manual and what they say on their website, this radio is manufactured by Xiamen Radtel Electronics Company Limited. Like I said, now Radtel has been known to rebrand other brand of radios. So I don't know if this is a rebrand of something else, but you know, it could be, or it could be that they did design and manufacture this one itself. I find that hard to believe because the firmware in this radio was very, very similar to the RT-890, which I have since reflashed with a different firmware from a third-party developer, but it was very, very similar between the two. So this is designated as a dual band radio, but it is a tri-band per the band plan as explained in their marketing. So we'll get into a little bit more into that in just a minute. It's supposedly an 8-watt radio, and it's supposed to hold 256 channels. The model number, of course, is RT-900. It's official. I found that on the label in the back of the radio. The battery is 200 milliamp hours. Now, this battery takes up more than its share of the weight of the radio. Now, look how thick this battery is. It's huge, and it weighs a ton. Just to show you, the battery on the RT-860, I should have taken this off before, is longer by a little bit, but it's much thinner and it doesn't weigh anywhere close to it. Now this is supposed to be 2000 milliamp, this is 2200. I don't believe that there's, that one of these is not correct. I would assume if this is truly 2200, which is big, this really can't be 2000. But, you know, without an actual test, one test is worth 1,000 expert opinions. So we'll see. So knowing that this battery is a full 2200 amp hours, I'm sorry, 2200 milliamps, let's get into the charging. It does not come with a cradle charger. It comes only with a wall wart and a USB-A to USB-C plug-in into the battery. So the battery has a USB-C on the bottom, and the radio itself does not have a USB-C plug anywhere on it. So, okay. Does have the K connector though, so for programming, I haven't tried it yet, but we'll get into that in just a minute. So there is no USB-C for programming. It does not come with a lapel mic or earpiece. Does not come with a microphone speaker combo. So it only comes with a USB-C charging program. cable and no programming cable whatsoever. So you'll need to buy a separate K connector type programming cable. And I do happen to have a specific Radtel one, but it's the same thing as the Baofeng. The Baofeng ones work just exactly the same. It does come with a belt clip, and it does mount to the battery itself. You know how much I can't stand having belt clips mount to the batteries themselves. To me, that's just insane. It does come with a wrist strap, and it does come with an instruction book, which is only 24 pages. It is generally well written in English, but it is a little light on the information. However, the information it does give is very pertinent, like your alphanumeric keystrokes. I'll get into the keys here in just a minute, but the keys that are on the front are all alphanumeric. Plus, there's long push functionality to each one of the keys on the front. I'm not going to go over what the long push functionality is on each key. I'll leave that up to you to go find the manual online and go through it and find out for yourself. There are no other items provided in the box that I just mentioned. I will provide a link to the Radtel website for you to look at the radio itself. It is specified as a 10-watt full band ham radio walkie-talkie. Now that's how they state it in their marketing. They also state that it gets the aviation bands, the NOAA bands, and can do police and marine and river frequencies. You can figure that one out. The controls on the radio itself. Let me put the battery back on here. The controls on the radio itself, there is a volume on-off control and a channel selector. And then, of course, the antenna. The antenna connector is your standard Baofeng type SMA male. So any Baofeng standard SMA female antenna will attach to this. Here we go. Oh, it does come with a dual band antenna, rubber duck antenna that's 6 3/4 inches long, and I will do some testing on that antenna to see how it fares before the end of the review. The frequencies specified in the manual and is basically 144 megahertz to 148 megahertz for 2 meter, and 420 to 450 megahertz for the 70 centimeter band. Now that's transmit and receive. Now that is also different than as advertised. If you go out to their website, they advertise it as 136 megahertz to 260 megahertz, 330 megahertz to 520 megahertz. Now that's transmit and receive. And it says receive only 65 megahertz to 520 megahertz. However, I found by trying to plug the numbers directly into the VFO, it's a lot different than that. Let me explain. I found that there were limitations that were far greater than what are specified and what are advertised. I found that I can punch in all the way down to 18 megahertz and all the way up to 136 megahertz, from 136 megahertz up to 260 megahertz. And then there's a little gap where I can only go from 330 megahertz to 520 megahertz. That's a whole lot, and that's transmit and receive. That's a whole lot different than what they specify in the manual and what they actually advertise. And then receive only is 65 megahertz up to 520 megahertz, and that's what they actually do advertise. That's receive only. The display type is a color screen. It's a blue-black background with white letters and numbers. There are some light blue letters on there, and they get washed out pretty easily in direct sunlight. The The large white numbers and letters that are on the screen, which are mostly just the frequencies, they can be seen in direct sunlight still. They don't get completely washed out. There is a power and an S meter, as well as an ABVFO specification or definition. And of course, there's a channel name and channel number on the screen as well. There's a lot of other small little icons, and I suggest you go through the manual to find out what each one was if you decide to actually buy one. There is a channel mode button and an OK button. They're the same button. Those buttons are bigger than the rest of the buttons, but they're still fairly small. And if you've got large fingers like I do, it's a little hard to press up on one and down on the other if you need to work those particular buttons. The very first time I tried to push them, I thought it was a dual function button, and I ended up double pressing the button. In other words, pressing both up and down at the same time. It was not apparent when I first started working with the radio. The other up down is also the frequency mode and channel mode, an OK button. So to go from frequency mode, channel mode, or to use it just as an OK button is both up and down. There's also the VFO AB and an exit button. That's also the up and down button. So you have to push either the top of the button or the bottom of the button. On the side, there is a push to talk button and two programmable buttons on the side. So let me just show you. You can see the up and down arrows, and then like this button over here, this is the VFO AB and the exit button. If you want exit, you have to push down on the bottom. If you want the AB, you have to push up at the top, and you can push both at the same time if you do that by accident. And the same thing for the other one, where you go from channel mode to frequency mode, and then also the menu mode and OK button. So that's OK, and that's frequency mode, channel mode. All right, and then like I said, your alphanumeric keys, and then each alphanumeric key, I don't know if you can see, but they also have little blue letters in there, and those specify the long push functionality. So I suggest you go through all of those if you want to. Here's the three buttons on the side, and then of course on the other side we have a little rubber flap with the K connector over here on this side, and there is no USB-C connector except for on the battery at the bottom. All right, so that's what we're looking at, and I'll be right back. First up, we are going to test the power output of the RT-900 Radtel on the 2-meter band on low power. And we come up with 4.19 watts. Again, on mid power on the 2-meter band, and we come up with 4.8284 watts. And on the high power on 2-meter band, come up with 8.40 watts. On the 70 centimeter band, on low power, come up with 1.79 watts. On mid power, we come up with 6.07 watts. And on high power, we come up with 6.27 watts. Now I'm going to test this on the 1.25 meter band, even though officially in the instruction manual it's not specified to transmit on that frequency. However, all the advertisements show that they do, and of course I tried to configure it with the into the 1.25 meter band, and obviously it took it. So let's see what happens when we go to transmit on the 1.25 meter band. On low power, we get 1.20 watts. On mid power, we get 2.72 watts. And on high power, we get 4.65 watts. And as always, I always test everything on the GMRS band for you GMRS guys. And so here we go. On GMRS channel 16, low power, we get 0.97 watts. On mid power, we get 4.19 watts. And on high power, we get 5.46 watts. Now we're going to test the stock rubber duck antenna on the 2-meter band, and we'll see what the SWR on that antenna is. Come up with about 2.29 to 1. Now we're going to test the SWR of the stock rubber duck antenna on the 70 centimeter band. And we come up with 1.79 as an average. Next up, we're going to test the rubber duck antenna on the 1.25 meter band. However, I do need to specify that this antenna is only specified as a dual band for 2 meter and 70 centimeters. So I don't expect this SWR to be good. But since the HT, the RT-900, is capable of transmitting on that band, I'm going to go ahead and test the SWR anyway, just to see what it is. And as we thought, it's not very good at 4.10. And last but not least, for all you GMRS guys, as you know, I always support you guys, so we're going to test this on channel 16 of the GMRS band and see what the SWR is for this antenna. And we get 1.91. Next, we're going to test the sound quality of the reception of the Radtel. I'm going to be just a short distance away, but I just want you to hear how it sounds. I'm going to take my microphone off and put it in front of the radio so you can see or hear how the different quality sounds. I'm going to try it with 2 different radios. I'm going to try it with a Radtel RT-900 and then with a Baofeng UV17 Pro GPS and see if you can tell any difference. Okay, first this is the Radtel RT-900. Let's see how this sounds, and next time you hear me, you'll be hearing me on a Baofeng UV17 Pro GPS. Here is a Baofeng UV17 Pro GPS. I don't know if it's going to sound any different to you. Let's go back and see. I'm going to replay it myself, and I'll tell you what I think. All right, I'm out here at my favorite park, Pioneer Park in Prescott, Arizona. And as it turns out, it's, well, it just stopped snowing. But as you can see, the wind is blowing, which is usual for this area. I picked this park because it's just the right distance to my house, my base station. It's starting to snow again. So I can test rubber duck antennas. If a good rubber duck antenna will barely make it to my base station, a not so great one won't make it. And I also brought a signal stick just in case, so I can test out the radio normally. And then also I brought a 1.25 meter antenna, see if I can get out to the repeater out there. So let me get set up and we'll get started with our testing. One last thing is one of the reasons why I picked this park is not only at the right distance, but there's hills here in the way, and there's buildings in the way, there's power lines in the way, and a power station in the way. So all those things contribute to not being able to get out very well to the to my repeater, simplex repeater, and it gets back to me. But when it gets back to me, there's very little, if any, static. Today there's a tad bit of static because of the weather. Otherwise, there's usually absolute quiet. So anyway, let's try it and see how it works. NADAV testing 1, 2, 3, 4. NADAV testing 1, 2, 3, 4. NADAV testing 1, 2, 3. Testing the RT-900 with the signal stick antenna. NADAV testing 1, 2, 3. Testing the RT-900 with the signal stick antenna. So as you can hear, really good quieting. Signal stick antenna does a really good job getting into my base station, and the base station does a good job getting back. Even with this bad weather here, we still had a really good signal going in and out. So I'm going to get back to my base, and we'll review everything after that, and we'll see what's going on with this radio. So what have we learned today? I have a lot to tell you. First of all, let's go to the SWR of the included rubber duck antenna. 2 meter, not so good, 2.42. 70 centimeter was good, 1.73. 1.25 meter, can't expect it to be good because it's specified only as a dual band. So only 2 meters, 70 centimeter, wasn't good, over 4. And GMRS was good, 1.86. Really not that bad for a standard rubber duck dual antenna. So what else did we learn today? So the power output on this thing, on the 2 meter band, was 4 on low, actually 4.25. It was 4.75 on mid, and 8.42 on high, which was pretty good considering it's rated as an 8 to 10 watt radio. The on the 70 centimeter band, 1.71 watts on low, 6.07 on mid, and 6.27 on high. Not up to snuff, however, for an 8 watt, 10 watt radio, actually I don't think you can expect much better than that with these cheap Chinese radios that are coming out. Now, on the 1.25 meter band, this one really blew me away. On low, it was 1.24, mid was 2.69, and high, 4.63. I consider anything between 4 and 5 watts minimum on the 1.25 meter band to be excellent. It gets out to that repeater that's 20, 25 miles away from me, and it gets out very well. I get good quieting into it, and I get good quieting coming back. On the GMRS band, we had 0.962 watts on low, 4.14 on mid, and 5.40 on high. I would really like to see a little bit more on the GMRS band, but still, that's acceptable. So I would say, not bad. Bravo! I'm kind of surprised. Um, now we also had some reception quality, sound quality that I tested. As you could hear with the Radtel RT-890, it was a little tinny. But you also heard with a much better quality radio, the Baofeng UV17 Pro GPS, we got some really good sound out of the RT-900. That was a close range sound test, but you could hear the difference. It was amazing. The next thing that we tested was the transmission and reception at distance. And there's a little bit of a problem with that. I'll tell you, I think the weather really caused a bit of a problem today. It was snowing, as you probably already know. And so it created a bit of a problem. However, I was able to get into my base station and my simplex repeater with the rubber duck antenna. It wasn't the best sounding, but it wasn't all that bad. But it took a couple of tries to get there. With the signal stick, got in, good quieting, it sounded great. It's not a bad transmitting or receiving radio. Like I said, it's a little bit higher wattage on the 2 meter and 70 centimeter band, so it might do fairly well for you, but just remember, this thing is a brick. It is big and it's heavy. Now, here's what I've run into. Programming the radio from the menu, not so great. It's not very intuitive. There are some things in the menu, and I'll do another video with some of the menu items where you don't know whether you're getting the menu or not. In other words, you click on the menu item that you want, and then you scroll down to the item that you want. Now, some of the items it highlights, and if you click OK, you get that item. On others, it flashes, and if it flashes and you click OK, then you get that item. And there are others where you get nothing. It just kind of disappears, and if you click on it, then you get it, and that's not good either. And there are some items that I configured, and when I went back to them, they weren't configured. Now, that might have been a mistake on my part. I'm old, and sometimes I make mistakes, but I don't think I did in this case. The other problem that I had was with the programming using the computer. First of all, Chirp does not support this radio officially yet. If there is another brand and model of radio that makes it work, I have no idea what that is. It's not listed on the Chirp website. So as far as I'm concerned, there's no support for this radio in Chirp at this point in time. So I went out and I got the official Radtel CPS software to go ahead and program this radio. And I have to tell you, it's crap. It does not work and it crashes. So let me just tell you what happened. First of all, a lot of the settings that are in the menu are not in the CPS. So you have to still go through the menu to get some of them. There's also the thing I was looking for dual receive mode and dual monitor mode, and I saw nothing in either the menu or the CPS for it, yet dual monitor mode is turned on in this radio. So that's what I like, that's what I want, but for some of you that may not want that, it looks like this radio and firmware was released a little bit before its time, so, and the CPS software as well. The next thing that I had a problem with is I programmed in, I think, 12 or 14 frequencies into the radio. And the issue is that I programmed in the receive frequency, the transmit frequency, and on the very first one that I put in, it didn't save the transmit frequency. So I went in here to configure it, and guess what? I can configure the 5 megahertz offset for the 70 centimeter frequency, but it wouldn't accept me saying that it was a minus on the offset. So a little problem there, Radtel, you gotta fix it. The plus, minus, or off doesn't set when you do go in here, and there's no way to tell it in the CPS software if it's a plus or minus. Now, some software can figure it out, like Chirp, a lot of times can figure it out, but the CPS software does not figure it out, and it doesn't allow you to set the plus or minus offset, only whether it's 5 megahertz or not, that or whatever the offset should be. So that's not good. But here's the other thing. When I went to write the CPS software to the radio, it crashed at 35%. It got up to 35%, it stopped, and then the CPS software just crashed. It did not program in the very first channel that I put into it. Channel 1 was actually the same as channel 2. And I had to write it several times before the channel that I put in as channel 1 actually was channel 1. Channel 2 was always channel 2. And everything else was fine too. But when it gets up to 35%, stops, and then it crashes, sometimes channel 1 is not programmed properly. So Radtel, better get on it. Your CPS software sucks. It crashes and it doesn't always program. The other thing is, when you set certain parameters in the CPS software, and if it crashes, it doesn't change those parameters in the radio. So you have to go through and manually configure those yourself. And if you manually configure some of those and it doesn't save them or keep them, there's another problem. So your firmware is has been released before it's should have been. Your CPS software definitely should have not have been released until you've done more QA QC on your CPS software. And by the way, I spent 12 years as a test engineer for software, hardware, and firmware. So I know what I'm talking about. You better fix it, Radtel. Just telling you. All right. When I come back, I will give you my thoughts on this radio as a whole. So here's my final thoughts about this radio. The Radtel RT-900. And it's not a bad radio. I don't think it's a bad radio. It's got some issues, though. First of all, it's built like a tank, and it's huge. It's big. I kind of like the fact that it's built like a tank, and I don't mind it being so big because my everyday carry radio is a Baofeng UV17 Pro GPS, and they're not small radios by any means, but they're much lighter than this. This is the kind of radio that I would like to carry, but I can't. It's just too big and heavy. The UV17 Pro GPS is about as big and as heavy as I would want to get. I am trying to move to a smaller, lighter radio. And so even though I carry the UV17 Pro GPS as an everyday carry, when I need to go a deeper concealment and something a little bit lighter and smaller, I go to the TID Radio TDH3. Now, don't get me wrong, the TDH3 is not the greatest radio in the world either. Neither is the Baofeng UV17 Pro GPS, but it's a much more mature radio, and it works really well. And there's another couple of thoughts that I have here. Another problem with the TID Radio TDH3 is that it doesn't have zones or channels. However, I'm running a third-party firmware in that radio, therefore it does have channels or zones. So I do like the radio much better because of that. This radio does not have zones, and it should. I think all radios, no matter how inexpensive, unless they're in the $16, $18 range, should have zones and channels. It's something that can be programmed by firmware into any and every radio. The TID Radio TDH3 didn't come with zones or channels in their firmware, but the third-party firmware puts them in there. Same thing with the Radtel RT-890. Same third-party developer, zones in the RT-890. This is the RT-900. It's a bigger radio. It's got more memory. You should be able to put zones in there. Radtel, are you listening? This is not the best radio in the world. It's not a bad radio. It could be better. Your firmware needs to be more mature, and it needs to be able to work the way it's intended. It should also include some of the features that you have so I can either turn them on or off. Also, your CPS software sucks, so you better get that straightened out. All right, so those are my thoughts on this radio. If you can get it cheap enough, it might be a good radio for you. Otherwise, I think it's just way too big and way too heavy to be practical, unless it doesn't bother you that this thing is built like a tank. And I haven't been able to test, I haven't had it long enough to be able to test the battery life. But with a battery this big, I hope that it lasts forever for you guys. So anyway, this is Dave in Prescott, Arizona. My motto is one test is equal to 1,000 expert opinions. And I think that says it all. Anyway, I'm signing off 73s to you, and so long.